My name is Marvin Arrington Jr., Vice President of the Homeowners Association here at Regency Oaks. Welcome home. We're certainly glad to see all of you here today. We will, what I would like to do is to ask those that have not submitted their ballots or their proxies, or I guess we need everyone to go to the back window and check in. But let's try to do this in an orderly manner. Let's start with the back row, and if you'll do it one row at a time and tap the person in front of you in the shoulder when you come back to your seat, and that way we can do one row at a time and try to keep this as orderly as possible, okay? If you have already turned in a proxy or a ballot, then you will not receive a ballot here today unless you request to withdraw your earlier written proxy or ballot that you submitted, okay? We'll go ahead and start with the Board of Directors roll call. I know Carell is here and Karen are both here, so I will make sure that we mark them present. Does anyone else need copies of the 2017 proposed budget? Anybody else need it? Yeah, I don't see the 16 budget. I didn't see that. They still printed in the back. Okay.
I want to go ahead and get the meeting kicked off, get it started. I do want to remind everybody that Robert Rules of Order will be leveraged to control the meeting and facilitate the meeting. We're going to also make some changes to the agenda that's not reflected in this one. We're going to have the Board of Directors roll call, of course. Public comments will go after the state of Regency Oaks. After the election. Let me stand up. And then we'll have the public comments while we have the ballots that will be counted while we're taking care of other agenda items. Okay? So let's go ahead and call it to order. The first thing we want to do is just dive into the state of Regency Oaks. And so that should be facilitated as we step through the actual agenda. And so again, we're going to move to public comments after the Board of Directors election.
Why is that?
Well, we're just making a change. Because the state of Regency Oaks need to be presented. You all need to hear about the actuals from 2016, and then we need to talk about the proposed budget for 2017. Okay?
What are the public comments? Were those things that might that weigh in on how we vote?
Well, so, and let me elaborate. So when you see Board of Director elections, that's where the candidates get to come up and present themselves to the community. I think that's where your question is concerned. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what it goes after the Board of Directors election. So hopefully that's good enough. Now I really want to try to go ahead and get us kicked off and get this going. So let's talk about. Did we pass out the 2016?
A lot of them have gone out. I'm waiting for the rest of Angie.
All right. So what we're going to do is just, let me finish. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
For the public comment, for the 20 minutes and 2 minutes per speaker, if you're going to limit debate, we're supposed to vote on it.
I'm sorry. One more time? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
On the public comment, for the 20 minutes, 2 minutes per speaker, if you're going to limit debate, we're supposed to vote on it.
Well, the debate has been for 2 minutes every election. This is not anything new.
Robert's Rules of Order. If you're going to limit debate, you are supposed to vote upon it in a 2/3 vote, and there is no, it's not a debatable motion. So when we get there, that needs to be voted upon if you're going to limit the discussion.
No, ma'am. The agenda is actually controlled by the board. There's no limit of debate. That would be a board decision, not subject to a vote. So just like we've done for over. But there's no limit to it. We set the time similar to what we've done over 13, 14 years, so there's no deviation from that. So, all right, so we'll step to the side.
If we're going against Robert's Rules of Order, then that, you can carry on.
Okay, so can I finish? Can I finish? So what we're going to do also with the Robert Rules of Order, there are certain things that we will suspend. so that we can allow more people to participate in the process, okay? So as outlined, we're going to keep the agenda as the same. The board will vote on this agenda, those changes. So can I have someone?
Motion to amend the agenda as so described.
You know, second?
I second the motion.
All right. Unanimous vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous vote. Thank you.
You have on here public comment, 20 minutes, and I'm not going to get into the Robert's rules. However, I've asked twice about where is the sign up for public comment, and I didn't.
Oh, I apologize. Can we pass that around? Yep, thanks. Thanks, good question.
So we have speaker sheets. Anyone that wants to make a public comment, if you will, fill out a speaker sheet, and that way we can have, try to have some order to the process.
All right. So we're going to start with, which one you want to start with? 2016, do you have a copy? Oh, okay.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, you can start whichever one you want. All right. So let's talk about Regency Oaks a bit. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll stand up. I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me in the back? All right. So we're going to start with the state of Regency Oaks. So we've already talked about the agenda. We're going to talk about the 2016 wrap-up. That will be Karen Blackman, who will talk about the actuals from 2016, meaning what was actually spent in 2016 from January 2016 through December 31st of 2016. So we'll step into that. Now, over the last year, Regency Oaks has went through a significant amount of change. And what I mean by a significant amount of change,
We have 2 seats over in the front.
got some more paperwork. So over the last year, we've done a significant amount of repair in the association. So we've spent, and Karen will get into some of the details, but we've had to totally rebuild what do you call it? The sprinkler system, the irrigation for the system. We've had to recover the clubhouse from a significant amount of water damage. We had a sinkhole over here at the actual pool house. The pool had a significant amount of repair. So we spent a significant amount of our time and some of our resources to repair a number of items that were, for lack of a better term, neglected. So you'll see a significant amount of monies put in place to take care of that. Also, we had a significant truancy issue. So landscape, you'll see an increase in the budget for landscape because of, for example, we had to cut down these, I'll just call them bushes right along the street. We had a significant number of dead trees that needed to be removed. And then, of course, a number of other items that had to be treated. And generally, what we generally like to do is just really give out, when this is about, probably about a 100-page slide deck, that where we've taken pictures before a lot of these repairs were substantiated. I've been in place for about 3 years. So we've moved away from the management company and automated a significant amount of the actual process. And so what I mean by that, for example, the clubhouse, before we got on board and we reviewed the audit that was in reference to the petty cash, because that's where the money from the clubhouse went, there was a recommendation from a review of our documentation to avoid taking cash, capture the contracts in a better fashion. And so what we did in regards to that was leverage technology. So we haven't touched any amount of cash because people sign their contracts online, they submit their payments online, and their refunds are paid online. And then, of course, when we refund them back their refunds, they are done online. So there's no actual hands-on with that particular process. So we've streamlined that, and you'll see that we had a significant increase in earnings around the clubhouse. From a litigation perspective, you'll also see that we were able to move from paying about $25,000 a year to less than $5,000, even after litigation in 2015 to 2016. We kept those expenses very low. Am I missing? Okay. Okay. Now, from a social perspective, what we've learned in attending the CAI, which is the Community Association Institute, is that in any community, we must protect what we call our community spirit. And so what we've done in 2016 is invested in a number of social events to bring different aspects of the community together, right? We have people from Red Maple who's engaging with people on Longview, on Arbor Court, et cetera. So you'll see that also reflected in Karen's report. From a collection perspective, we've done an awesome job. So from 2014, where we saw that where collections were about 40%, we've gotten our collections up to over 90% by taking more of a neighborly approach to collection, which is actually worked, and we're very proud of that. It took us a little bit of time to get there, but we're there. Also, something I don't want to leave out, from lessons learned from litigations in 2015 and 2016, we have had to remove about $60,000 to $65,000 of debt from a number of residents who received letters that were not formed correctly. And so we also had some individuals who owed around $20,000 from before 2013 to, right. So when I mean formed correctly, they were the rules of that govern our violation process were not followed by the management company. So after that litigation, we took a look at some of the violation letters that were sent to a number of our residents, and so we decided to make those corrections. Yep, NMA, Neighborhood Management Association, was the management company at that time. So we're very proud of that. We've had residents who haven't, since my term of 3 years, who were not current are now current. And so we continue to work through that process with a number of residents. And as you all know, we had a number of capital improvements. So say, for example, the playground was a capital improvement which was already on the plat that John Whelan was to complete. The mailboxes were also installed because after deep dive into the research, we found that when mailboxes of our neighbors are, how can I put it, they were not attractive, then it had a negative impact not only on their homes, but also on the neighboring homes. And so it made sense to avoid sending out a special assessment telling everybody to install your mailbox within 30 days, right? Because the question would be, is it likely that everybody would install their new mailboxes at the same time? And so that, we also included Longview, right? We know Longview had been around for maybe over 2 years. We just wanted every mailbox to be on the same cycle. And we also hashed out a maintenance contract where those mailboxes would be managed and maintained. So I think since we've done that, we probably have replaced, I want to say 2, maybe 3 mailboxes. The point is, during that year, you paid $750 in dues, unless you just had purchased your home, right? But you got about $250 back. Well, not $250, I'm sorry, $200, which left your dues at about $550 that year. So as a board, we have been working to roll back the dues as close to $500 as possible. So for the last 2 years, we've done $750 to test the waters to make sure we can cover all of your expenses as expected, for the association and still be able to contribute to the reserve fund. Okay? One other thing too, over the last 2 years, the board had 4 community events in addition to the 4 board meetings. And what we found is that people were not coming to those community events. We opened it up for conference call where people can call in. We opened it up for online access. We were using Google Hangout at that particular time. And so the additional community meetings went away. But after hearing from some other residents, then we thought it would be best to give that a try again. Also, we will record these meetings so that as a resident, at least the initial piece, you will be able to go out to what we call Oaks Tube and view the meeting if you don't make it to the meeting. Because we think that's where some of the gaps are, because people are not, people do not know what's happening in the community. So as a board over the last 3 years, we've learned so much that when you have a ship this big, we have to take a look at each one of those services and start to make changes on more of an incremental basis. So we can't make a change that's sweeping. So say, for example, the help desk. I'm proud of the stats from the help desk. We have handled about, in 2015, we handled nearly 500 trouble tickets or calls. And our average response time is within the 72-hour window. There are some circumstances where it requires an additional response. There's a response back and forth between the residents, their phone calls. So we're really happy with that. So 500 in 2015. And here in 2016, we did a total of 362 calls, right? Which again, we met our service level agreement with the community by responding within 72 hours. So that's something to be proud of. We've also revitalized our website. I don't know how many of you all have been out to regencyoaks.org. But regencyoaks.org is really reflective of the character of our community, because we are competing. And that's another reason why we did the mailboxes. More development is coming to our area. And so we're going to have to compete with these new developments, like we have one right down the street. So if someone decides that they want to move from Regency Oaks and sell their home, then the possibility of selling at home sooner than 6 months, which is standard for black communities, would be a lot earlier, and we see that happening already, okay? Am I forgetting anything? Okay, so again, I didn't want to do a top-down list for the sake of time, but know that from a board perspective, we get a significant amount of feedback in the help desk in reference to what we do. So say, for example, I forgot to mention about the fitness center. The fitness center was an ad hoc committee's decision. The idea came to us from a resident who, well, really a number of residents who spent a significant amount of time in the fitness center. So we asked that they form an ad hoc committee. They took time to dive into the details, and they put a lot of love into identifying the actual machines that would add value to you all for who are health conscious. So I think that process took about, I want to say 2 to 3 months, but they came back with a recommendation to the board. Well, the board took a look at it. We took their recommendations, but we went another route with financing the equipment. Although we could have paid for the equipment in cash, we decided to finance it, and I'll explain why. Same thing about some of the healthy initiatives that we've had in the pool. That came by way of a recommendation from a resident. So a lot of these ideas that are coming in like the mailbox concerns, they are all encouraged by members of the community who reach out throughout the help desk and ask for these things. So I'm saying all of that to say is that the board really pays attention when residents have questions or concerns. Now, are we responding in 72 hours, sometime a little longer? It actually depends. And I think working together, we can accomplish a lot more with the community if if there are questions or concerns that are put forth to the board of directors, either by calling into the help desk, because we do have the phone number, submitting your request by the help desk website, or even submitting an email to the help desk. Right, so that's our repository of capturing these conversations. So if we're not meeting those deadlines, we can go and try to take corrective actions. If there's some questions about communications, then we can have that discussion with the homeowners. So again, we're very progressive in how we're managing Regency Oaks, but we can't make sweeping changes all at the same time. We're going to have to incrementally make those changes. Now, from a transparency perspective, just going back to our frequency of meetings, what we did in 2014 to 2015 with the frequency of the meetings, that was geared towards making sure everybody was in the know of the changes that had been taking place. So, for example, we have well over 90% of the residents, maybe even 95% of the residents that pay their dues online. And if you're paying your dues online, you'll notice that you're not being charged a fee or a convenience fee to pay your dues online. It is our position that if we make it convenient for the residents to pay their dues, number one, they'll pay their dues. Number two, we can avoid some of the additional costs, like mailing out those coupon books, right, which was very costly to the association. So we need to be in control of how we bill or have our community participate in the process of contributing to what I call our internal tax digest, because we're using that to take care of your community. And if you notice, we used to put out the your dues at work signs, and we got away from that, and we shouldn't have. You've seen reliable implementation of flowers. You've seen a consistent look and feel around the amenities. All of those things are leading to one responsibility that the board is charged with, which is protecting your property values. So one thing we can be excited about, the housing market is on an uptick for the next 18 months. So you should see an increase in your property value. You'll see that the builders are now have more homes on their digest, although they're changing the way these homes are built because they're targeting millennials. We should see more value come to this community. Now, Corral, if we could have paid cash for our fitness center, why borrow the money? Well, in evaluating the records, we found that everything that we were doing for over 12 years here in Regency Oaks added value to the Dun and Bradstreet number for John Whelan. So we couldn't even go out and borrow any money from a bank because we had no credit history. Today, we have credit history because we started by financing the equipment so that we can build that credit. We have 65 acres of land in the back. As a community, we need to think about that. Do we want additional 70+ homes built in the back, or do we want to be in control of our own destiny and consider purchasing that land and deciding what we as a community want to do with that? We've already sat down with Jefferson Homes. Jefferson Homes is open to selling the land to Regency Oaks Association. The details hadn't been hashed out because, you know, again, this is a big ship, and we have to prioritize our focus on behalf of the actual community. Okay? So let me see, I think I'm close to it. Again, speaking to the transparency, One thing we can say is that we are more transparent than the last board. Is there room for improvement? Of course, nobody's going to profess to be perfect. We look forward to that feedback. I even went back and looked through the history of the help desk, looking for concerns about transparency and some of those things. I didn't find any until more recently. That doesn't marginalize that concern. We will address those concerns by having more frequent meetings, but we ask that the residents attend those meetings. If you attend those meetings, good. But if you can't, we're going to make sure they're recorded. So we will do our part as a board, or the future board, for whoever the board may be. We should all do our part and stand up those additional meetings. But again, that has to be done by a resolution. All right, so I'm just going to allow the vice president to speak, and then we'll go from there. We'll have Karen go over the treasury report. Here you go.
Thank you, Correll. I think that was a good job of kind of doing a 2016 year in review, or 2016 state of Regency Oaks, where we are today. I guess I wanted to talk briefly about our vision and plan for going forward. Certainly there has been a lot of talk recently about transparency, and so I guess what I want to say is that we have heard our neighbors, we've heard you loud and clear. Increased communication, increased transparency, and so we are planning on announcing our meeting dates. Today we're having a meeting on March 4th. We're planning on having meetings every 90 days, so the next meeting will be on or about June 4th. And the meeting after that will be on or about September 4th, and the meeting after that will be on or about December 4th, and we'll make sure that we email those out to you so that everyone will know the calendar for the meetings for the entire year, and so you all will have that information. We'll also make sure that it's posted on the website, our plan is to, in the December meeting, to give out the calendar for 2018, so we'll have that a year in advance as well. As far as audits, the board has, again, heard you all loud and clear. We're going to have audits going forward. We'll start, there are different levels of audits. So we'll probably start with the full audit of 2013. And our current plan, and certainly we'd love to hear from you all on this, but our current plan is to do full audits every other year, and then do a review in the off years. Review is a little less detailed, probably a lot less detailed than the audit, which actually checks all of the supporting documents and those things. So for expense purposes, the current plan is to do a full audit every other year. We'll go back, do 2013, we'll do 2015, and we'll likely do reviews for 2014 and 2016. So there should not be any gaps in any of those years. And obviously, if the majority of the community decides that they want full audits every year, then we'll do full audits every year. Financials, the quarterly reports for, I know 2015, 2014, and I believe 2013 are posted online at myro.regencyoaks.org. And I know we need to make sure that the quarterly reports for 2016 are posted on there as well, and I believe those should be posted on there within the next 2 or 3 days. And we also need to make sure, I think all of the minutes from 2015, 2014, and 2013, and even before 2013 actually, are posted on there. For those years that we have minutes, all of those minutes are posted there. But we do need to post 2016 minutes on there as well, and we will get that done certainly in the next 30 days. Karen will talk about the financials, but we use QuickBooks. So you put the information in QuickBooks and you can run whatever report you want to. So there's no problem with running a quarterly report. There's no problem with posting those reports, and again, a lot of those are already published on myro.regencyoaks.org. Now, we hear people talking about lack of transparency and lack of accessibility to these documents, but we know who logs into myro.regencyoaks. We know when you log in, and if you have logged in. And most people have not logged in to look at those. And so it's a little disingenuous to hear people say that they're not available, and then we can look on and see they haven't even logged in. So, but again, all of those records will be there. Most of them are there now, and anything that's not there will be there within 30 days. And so again, our plan for 2017, meetings every 90 days, audits going forward, posting of all the quarterly reports will continue, and posting of the minutes will continue. Capital expenditures, 2016, we were able to get $25,000 in from John Whelan as part of our settlement with them. So we got $25,000 in, and that was one of the reasons we were able to do a lot of the things that we were able to do, like adding the top lot, adding the security to the common area, because I don't know if a lot of you remember, we had teenagers damaging our clubhouse, damaging our fitness area. And so now that we have full-time monitoring, video monitoring of this area, we have not had any such incidents. And if we do, we'll be able to, for the most part, track those down. So we're excited about that as well. So I think with that, I will pass it on. Yes, sir.
I apologize. One other thing I do want to mention, and this is in relation to the governing documents. In the governing documents, it does require that we provide financial information on an annual basis. Again, I think I spoke to that we started doing it more frequently, and there were residents who actually stated that it was too much. That's the feedback that we were receiving in 2015. So the board can work to pass a resolution that, I'm sorry? The board can pass a resolution to allow for more frequent reporting. So that will definitely happen. But, you know, we didn't get any requests for more frequent reporting until in February. All right, here you go, Karen.
When we took the transition from NMA John Whelan to Regency Oaks Board in June of 2014, they gave us $45,000 to open an account with and a list of debts. And as we went back and audited the bills that they'd been paying, we were paying bills for the gate over at Legend Oaks. We were paying exorbitant bills. They were paying 2 garbage companies to pick up the trash. There's a lot of things that they had done. And all through the years, John Whelan kept adding up and adding up. And when we took over, he said we owed him $500,000. Also, the board from John Whelan had already done a plan that in the year of 2017 the dues would be up to $900. That was what they had already planned for. So we took the $45,000 and we just cut everything to a bare minimum but what we had to do till we found out that there were leaks out here and that type of thing. At the end of the next year we had $160,000, $100,000 in a reserve account and $60,000 in our operating account. This year, we have $80,000, $40,000 in the reserve account, which is what was planned, and $50,000 in the operating account. That's why you have a 2017 report, because that gives you to today, or through yesterday, exactly what we have in the bank. It's on the last page, I think, page 7. The 2017 financial report, year-to-date, you'll see that in the BB&T operating account as of yesterday, we had $51,000. In the reserve account, we had $40,000. In the PayPal account, we had $1,400. we have some checks that we got in last week that hadn't been deposited yet, so that's $3,000. So all in all, right now, Regency Oaks has $96,652.13. We're in good financial shape. We see no reason to raise the dues. Our goal is to lower them to $650. If you, yeah. That's why we have tried to work so hard to monitor every single thing that goes through here, whether it's the water bills or how much toilet paper we're using, and find the best deal. We don't just go to Sam's and buy toilet paper. We go out and seek it from vendors that it costs less. So we've been able to keep our costs down, and that's why we have the money. The Treasurer's Report for 2016, the only part that I felt like you might not quite understand. Yeah.
Anybody have 2016?
You should have a 2016.
I think we have to print more copies. It's the 2016 year-end financial.
Okay, in 2016, the total revenue that we brought in was $215,000. Part of that was the $25,000 that John Whelan gave us. $18,000 came from new homes that are sales of homes. So in 2016, there were 10 homes sold and bought and sold. So then when you come down to the expenditures, which are the capital improvements, those are items that are not everyday maintenance, not everyday repairs. And it came to $45,000 is what we spent on capital improvements. So when you take the $100,000 that we had in the reserve account, we spent the $45,000 on capital improvements, which include the mailboxes, the video camera system, the playground, community signs, Christmas updates, and the Wi-Fi, so that people can enjoy the Wi-Fi while they're out at the pool themselves. The rest of the items are self-explanatory pretty much. I broke them down into what it costs for, in the darker headings, what it costs for administrative, the bank charges we pay, the professional fees that we pay. And then I tried to group them by areas, how much it costs to run the clubhouse, how much it costs to run the fitness center, and that type of thing, and how much it costs to run the pool. Last year we had to have the roof repaired, which was one of the things that John Whelan stuck us with. That's why they so readily agreed to give us the $25,000. So we bickered back and forth. We tried to get 50, they ended up with 25. But what they did is they signed in writing that the debt, the $500,000 debt is gone. We don't owe them any money, and so therefore we don't have to raise the dues or anything and try to pay John Whelan. So that came out in our favor. So when you see the negative operating revenue, that is the negative for the capital improvements, not from the regular revenue. The first year in 2015, when we took over from John Whelan, we tried, in 2014, we had only had the books for 6 months. We had them from June to December. And we tried our best to do a 2015 budget. It was very difficult based on John Whelan's actual figures because some of those were so outrageous. So we cut the budget to the very bare minimum. We agreed not to spend any money or anything. And so with that, that's how we were able to accumulate up to $160,000 from $45,000. This year, the 2017 budget is based on what we have paid for certain things that are common, like electricity and water and gas, bank fees, that type of thing. We did or would like to do some capital improvements again this year, one of them being the tennis court. We wanted to put benches out there and cover so that when the people come, they can sit under the cover and they're not out in the sun. There's some items that I think the Alta tennis team wants to have upgraded. Same thing with the basketball court. They were talking, we wanted to do some benches out there, so, and in this clubhouse here, this furniture is really shot. The tables are just on their last legs, the furniture and things. So we wanted to take $10,000 and buy some new tables and buy some new chairs to make our clubhouse look better. You know, the carpeting helped. Also, we want to have the clubhouse painted all over. What we've been doing all these last 2 years is patching. There was a leak in the wall over there. You can still see it. And until they fixed the roof, then behind the sheetrock it was mildewed. And so we got that fixed, and then they would patch that area right there. So I think it's time for a good paint job throughout the whole clubhouse. So the other items that we have, as you look through it, basically our largest items are landscape and the pool. Those are the only two things that really require that we have a contract for. So we have a contract with Blue Whale Pool Service, and we have a contract with National Landscape for the landscaping. And so to run the clubhouse, it takes about $32,000 because of electricity, plumbing, water, the pest control, termite bond, clubhouse monitoring, cleaning services, and other repairs we've had to make. So basically, we have, like, the fireplace didn't work, hadn't worked for a couple of years, so we were able to get on it, get somebody to give us a bid. I think we got the fireplace fixed for $180. And so as of now, there aren't that many repairs that need to be done. Everyday maintenance, we're pretty much up to date. There's no leaks in the kitchen sink, the toilets aren't running, so we don't have an exorbitant water bill. And so our goal is to not increase and to add anything to this budget. And it goes back to a management company. When you get a management company, they're going to charge you, and they're not going to care whether they paid the bills are legit, not legitimate, but they're not going to let you know if you got a $5,000 electric bill, and last month it was only $200. So it's very simple to run Regency Oaks. It is a small business. You've only got 200 homes. They only pay once or maybe 4 times a year. Most of them pay online. It just goes right into the QuickBooks account. The bills that we have, we've set up on online bill pay that they pay. Greystone Power's paid automatically. Some of the other ones we pay the gas, the telephone, that type of thing. We pay online once a month. Insurance. So it only takes 1 day a month to pay your bills for the month. And the other part is that, like Carell said, we have tried to work with every homeowner out here. There's been some homeowners that have been out here for 10 years and paid their dues faithfully for 10 years. And all of a sudden, they lost their job. The husband had a car wreck. You know, they're barely making ends meet. So we've made payment plans with them to pay. We'd rather have some money than nothing. And then it also helps them to feel like they're a part of the community. If they give the best it's like in church collections. Some people can give 100 and some people can only give 10. It's true, everybody should pay their fair share. But if they can't pay their fair share, what are you going to do? If you try to sue them, they don't have a job, you're not going to get anything. So it's better than to incur the legal expense of $250 every time you run downtown and take a civil suit against the homeowner than it is to try to work with them and get what you can from them and hope that as they work every month making a payment, they will soon get caught up. So that has been how we've managed to keep our dues collections, you know, up. And one last thing, in 2016, we collected $215,000. And we're estimating this year to collect $202,000. So it's a little down from last year. Some of it's based on how many homes are sold within the neighborhood. Because when a home is sold, they pay an initiation fee, a capital reserve fee, a closing cost, transfer fees. NMA was keeping those fees. They should have been turning them over to Regency Oaks because we paid them to do a job, and we didn't pay them to keep the transfer fees and the closing cost fees. So they were getting over on that. They also used some of their vendors that they used in other places, like up north. They didn't care. They didn't get bids per se. They just had their lawn company come out and do our lawn. And so, not saying they got a kickback, but you know, if you've got NMA managing 5 companies and all 5 properties use the same landscape service, you know, and there's no bid for it, then something's not. They just took it for what it was, and we were able to decrease the pool cost tremendously. We anticipate a $208,000 spending this year, where last year we spent $258,000. So we're hoping to spend $50,000 less this year, which will cause us to be able to get our budget down to where we can go to $650. It will allow us to do a couple more capital improvements, and then we're about through with that. So as those things get done, and if we maintain, they gave us the retention ponds out here that hadn't been cleaned in 14 years, and that was a horrible thing. And they came out and they cleaned them one time, and then they dumped it on us. So now we have National Land Care comes out and tries to maintain it. I mean, there were animals and squirrels, and it was just, there's 3 or 4 retention ponds.
Yeah, we have a total of 4.
So basically, NMA wasn't paying for those. They didn't care, you know. So we're getting everything to where it's being able to be managed. Okay, you want me to stop? Okay. Okay.
All right, are there any homeowners that have not signed in? If you have not signed in, please go to the window and see Gabriella Torrey with Atlanta Executive Property Management, and she will make sure that you get signed in. If you've already submitted a ballot or a proxy, then you will not get a ballot or a proxy here today unless you request to withdraw your ballot or proxy that you have already submitted, okay? We need to go sign in ourselves, so why don't we take a 1-minute bathroom break, and we'll come right back and get started with the election.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carell Driscoll. I have been living in Regency Oaks for now 6 years. I've served on the board for over 3 years. I volunteered before that. I am a very detailed, oriented, informational type guy. I have a significant amount of experience on HOAs. On last year, I advised over 20 different HOAs because I've taken time to learn about HOA laws, the governing laws, which is the Georgia Nonprofit Code, our own governing documents like the Article of Incorporation, the bylaws, and the Declaration. Look, I believe in trying to follow the rules. I think sometimes that could probably rub the wrong person the wrong way. But either way, I believe in protecting the interests of our community. That's what I've dedicated my last 3 years to. We've streamlined the operations of the HOA. Some of the people who were doubters are now believers. We've turned this ship around. Self-management is the way to go. I don't want us to pay an additional $50,000 and then increase the dues. We talked about security. We listened to the public. There was a survey. There was over 116 people that answered that. The overwhelming response to paying additional dues for anything was no. So all I want to do is just continue down the path for the next 2 years, make sure we outsource the different services on more of a modular basis. And that's where we are doing what we're doing with the finance piece. We've done so many other different services. Now we're focusing on finance. We'll have a CPA that will start doing the financial statements moving forward, right? Because we'll capture all of the transactions. We'll outsource that piece. We'll do audits on the different years as Marvin prescribed a little bit earlier. So I appreciate your vote. I look forward to continuing to work for you all. Again, my name is Correll Driscoll. Thank you.
My name is Karen Blackman. I'm the current treasurer of Regency Oaks. Since I have been treasurer, I have now certified advisor with QuickBooks. I have gone and taken certifications with the Community Association Institute. I own my own small business. I'm also the treasurer of Georgia Association of Professional Bondsmen. I have put a lot into getting to the point where we are with Regency Oaks. I feel good that we're financially sound and that we may even be able to decrease the dues. So if I'm elected, that is my goal, is to get the dues increased and the amenities to stay up. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Erica Berrien, and I've served on the social committee for the last year in 2016. I decided to join the committee because I wanted to meet my neighbors. I wanted to understand the folks that we live next to. I hadn't previously done that in communities we lived in. I have a 11-year-old son who has friends and classmates in this neighborhood. One of the major reasons why I wanted to actually run for the board is I ask quite a few questions. By profession, I'm a finance director for a national 501c3 organization that trains criminal defense lawyers. And I ask a lot of questions at work, and I asked a lot of questions for the community I lived in, and I did not receive those answers. I submit to audits every year. I constantly am asked questions by my staff and by the lawyers that I serve. I wanted to be a voice for people that felt like they didn't have one. I felt like we needed to make sure that any homeowner that asked a question, that answer would be provided. So I am actually running for the board so I can make sure that the folks that ask questions get an answer, that before you even ask, that the information is provided. I provide annual, monthly, and quarterly financials on a regular basis with no problem. And I welcome any questions. If there is a possibility to ensure that our community has the answers that they are looking for, I'm here to provide that. I work for a nonprofit that actually answers questions to the highest office in the land, the Chief Financial Officer. So at the end of the day, if anyone has any information that they're looking for, I'd like to be the answer to provide that. So not only am I looking to just provide a transparency when it comes to where our money is going, but also make sure that people are represented. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Natalie Dansberry, and I have to tell you guys, I never thought I would be standing up here to run for a board position. And the reason that I decided to run for a board position is because I moved here in 2014, October of 2014. November of 2014, we had a community meeting, and it was great. I got a chance to meet my neighbors. I had the opportunity to find out about some committees, which I joined one of those committees, the MEC committee, it was just so much going on, and I heard about, did a presentation on finances, and I understood the stability, financial stability of the community. I understood where our monies were going. Since 2014, October of 2014, there has not been a community meeting. Since 2014 of October, I have not seen a P&L statement. I have not seen any financial statements. The way that I found out that we were going to have, and my understanding was we were going to spend $40,000 on a gym upgrade. It was actually Dennis Brazil and 3 other guys riding around in a car. They were talking to a neighbor of mine, and I didn't know who they were. So I was just kind of watching to make sure everything was okay. And then I came up to him, and I realized it was Dennis. And they were I think they were trying to choose best lawn trying to do, putting a sign, to find out who was going to get the best lawn. And that's when he told me, proudly, that we're getting ready to have a $40,000 gym. I don't think I should have to find out from someone riding around in a car how we're spending our money. I mean, that goes for the mailboxes. Not that it's not a good idea, but I think we, the people, deserve to know how our money's being spent and not just at the end of the year. Me and several of my neighbors have asked for financial statements. I personally asked for, meetings. Can we have quarterly meetings? And what I was told was we're only required to have a meeting at the end of the year. And I'm thinking that's a good thing, to have community meetings, to have community involvement, and we're not getting that. And that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm reinstating my bid temporarily. The reason I'm here is to be a voice of reason for you guys. My background, I'm in the military, U.S. military officer. I'm also the president of a multi-million-dollar business, and we handle million-dollar budgets. And when I came in here, I'm not subjective, I'm objective, because I've only been here for a short period of time, and since I've been here, I've seen a tremendous lack of transparency. I've seen a tremendous disregard for the individuals, you guys who are here. We just listened to, for the past 30 minutes or so, going over the financial statements. Everything that's in those financial statements should have been presented to you, and you should have known the economic impact for every single thing. We spent over $65,000 on things that don't matter to you or to me. How many people actually come here to this building right here? How many people go to the playground? That's where our money was spent. Okay, so so we should have a voice. There should be these things presented to us. But for the first time, you're seeing me today, and unfortunately, for the very first time, you're seeing some of the board members who have been here for years, and that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. So the reason I'm here is as a voice of reason for you guys to vote for the individuals that have the experience. We have very talented individuals running. Vote for those individuals who can step in and continue with the progress. These guys have done a great job with what they had to work with, but we do have some talent. We do have some individuals with some abilities to take this community to the next level. And your input is required. You guys should have a voice when it comes to making any financial decision, and you're paying your money. I want to know how my money is spent. You guys should have that option as well. So thank you. Don't vote for me.
We have questions, or do we want to proceed with the vote? Okay, let me do it by show of hands. Let me do it by show of hands. All of those that have questions of the candidates, let me see your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, 7. All of those that want to proceed with the vote, let me see your hands. All right, the proceed with the votes have it. So if you have questions, you will be able to ask those questions. We'll have a public comment period, and you'll be able to ask those questions. Yes, ma'am.
Marvin, that's not what you said initially. You indicated at that time that there would be an opportunity to ask questions.
Yes, ma'am. The will of the people have spoken. We just did by a show of hands.
Before you said, you indicated that she would have an opportunity to ask.
Okay, I was wrong. Right now, we're getting ready to proceed with this election. Yes, ma'am.
I want to make sure that those that said they did not have questions and wanted to proceed with the votes were not like Kirk and I, and two people in one.
We're not going to be able to do that today. No, ma'am, we're not. No, ma'am, we're not. What's next? All right. Okay, all right. Well, there were only 7 hands that had questions, and there were over 30-something that raised their hands for.
You just have 7 questions of the whole thing. So you just ask the more people running, if they can just go there. Me personally, and everyone, I don't think they should have the tactical questions. They should just be pretty generic questions on where they may stand on certain issues like the game.
If you're trying to encourage transparency, you not allowing people to ask their questions is actually not helping your case.
Well,
I mean, it's just true.
what I did was put it out to a vote of the community, and the community spoke. This is not me, this is not what I'm saying. I'm saying it because the community voted on it. So, that's fine, look, let's have all 4 candidates come up. Let's have all 4 candidates come up. We'll take up to 10 minutes to have questions of the candidates.
Hi, Danielle Bernard. I just have a question of the board. Where do you all, or not the board, excuse me, the candidates running. Where do you all stand on the issue of the gate?
Well, let's start with the ones who push it. There you go.
In terms of security, I would like to to actually hear from people. We did a survey. From what I understand, I did not participate because I was not aware of it. So I'd like to make sure that we we make every attempt to hear from every homeowner. If that means we need to walk, we need to call, we did robocalls, we should be able to do that in order to make sure we have not just the general consensus, we have the majority of the voices heard. That's my opinion.
I want to tell you about a gate. As soon as you put a gate up at the entrance here, we are no longer covered by Fulton County. That means they're not going to pay for our street lights anymore, they're not going to pay for our streets anymore, and anything that goes wrong in this community behind those gates.
Let me just step in, folks. I'm sorry. Let me be clear about the gate. Understand, once you put a gate up there, this becomes private property.
The police can't come in.
The streets and everything. We have to be invited to come in. And I'm just here as a bystander now, but I'm not talking on behalf of Fulton County, but understand, once you put a gate out there, just like the other gated community right up the street, you're private property. So we can't come in here and police your streets like we do. We have to be invited, unfortunately. You're still paying your taxes, we'll still be here, but you got to invite us to come in. So just keep that in mind. There you go.
Just who was proposing a gate? Who was that?
Well, we got a question on the floor. Let's let her finish. And we're going to go to our another 2 candidates. Are you finished?
No, I was just going to say that over the last 3 years, we have done extensive research about the gate and what it will do to the community. It's going to make your dues go up automatically because you're going to be responsible for paying everything and anything in here. You know how easy it is to come in behind somebody at a gate. The policeman can't, they can come break in your house, but the police can't come in here and do anything about it. So what's the point in having a gate? It's not secure in anything. The teenagers can walk through the woods back here and break in your house and carry the TV back up to Stonewall Tail. So what you got to think about is before you vote on a gate, you think about you got to be ready to. The people at Legend Oaks pay $1,000 dues. $1,200. They pay $1,200 over there, and there aren't as many so that they can have a gate. Is a gate that, when you weigh the difference between how much it costs to have that gate and what it's going to significantly benefit you, you really have to think about that.
How many cars over there been broken into? We don't know the answer to that. Look, we already got a question on the floor. Natalie, it's your turn. Yes. We're not going to be able to take questions like that. Or we got 1 question on the floor. We're going to finish that one, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm going to say this before I get tackled. This is what I mean. This is a whole year, and we're limited to 10 minutes of questions. This is just not fair. People should be able to speak their mind. They shouldn't have to hold it in all the way to 1 year, and then you're like, hey, you're out of line. I mean, that's not community. That's not inclusion. To answer your question, I'm for security. Okay, I'm for I don't know what the best thing is. I would love to have you and some of your colleagues to come in and tell us what really works. Is it a gate? Is it someone driving around doing security? Is it having cameras is it having someone in the guard shack and having cameras right at their eye level where you can take a picture of who is coming across? I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know is there was a security survey put out, but I have not seen the results of the security survey. I have not seen the tallies. Now, what I have heard is someone says the majority don't want a gate, but I have not seen, and has anyone seen the actual tallies of I have not seen the actual, like, hey, people want this, people don't want this. And then my thing is, okay, whatever the result of that is, where is the security? Is the security just cameras?
Are we supposed to respond to this?
No.
So I'm just saying, I just think that we need to have more community inclusion, and it doesn't need to be that you're shut down to 10 minutes when we've only all been in this room since a year ago. Okay, thanks.
Everybody probably in here have seen at least a next door posting or a newsletter from the association or even from me. We have done our due diligence since 2014, and we have shared this information throughout the community. In fact, there was dialogue on Nextdoor where we shared the information, and Natalie was the one that started the thread. So we answered her questions, and we provided the output of those votes. We pushed it. We asked everybody several questions, and the consensus is, let's put security cameras up. Let's not increase our dues to pay for those, for an additional gate or to pay for security. Those results were shared several times, and in fact, if you go to Nextdoor, you'll see where I resurfaced them several times by responding. I am against a gating system because you all are against a gating system. When you think about privatizing the roads, it's $1 million reserve per 1 mile for us to function and operate our community. They've looked at this in the years past. The capital investment to install a gate is well over $50,000, which means you have to be specially assessed. We have certain individuals who are really just thinking about their corner, their block, their individual home. My family live out here. I would love to have security drive throughout the community. Really, I would love to have an officer with arrest power. But my neighbors overwhelmingly don't. So I have to get on board with the majority. I do it over and over again. Again, I am totally against security unless you want to be specially assessed or you want your dues increased. We're trying to give you more of your discretionary income. Now, if we vote to implement it, then we'll implement it and I'll probably move because I want to keep my money.
All right, thank you. We're going to take 1 or 2 more questions, guys. We got to get, yes, ma'am.
My question is for the current board, if you guys don't mind. So I appreciate the efforts and the transparency for the financial statements. I think you guys are going in the right direction with that. And I know that your plan is to start like a financial statement audit or review going forward. But for the statements that we have now, how does the community gain comfort that what are the statements is actually accurate and free of like some type of material misstatement when you haven't done an audit yet? So so I'm an auditor by nature, so I just have to know the answer.
So the community has been around since 2002. There have been 0 audits since 2002, okay? In 2013, there was a review because we noticed discrepancies with about $18,000 from the clubhouse account. She asked the current board, and I am a member of the current board, and I'm answering. And if you don't like it, then you can leave. She asked the current board, I'm a member of the current board, and I'm answering the question. Okay.
Hold on. Come on, let's get some order. Okay, right. So I think, let me just restate my question so you can fully understand. I'm not saying that the statements are incorrect. I'm just saying for the people here where the statements haven't been audited just yet, how do we gain comfort that what's in the statements are accurate? We can't see any supporting documentation that says, okay, like this is the invoice or this is whatever, the payment for this. So I'm saying as a group, like how do we know it's not just numbers on a piece of paper?
Okay, let me say this. I have yet to get a request from anybody in this community that said, Karen Blackman, you're the treasurer. I would like to come in and see the books. I understand what you're saying. I'm very meticulous. For every single check that's been written, I have the backup to it. They're in notebooks this big back there. We have had a CPA file our tax returns for 2 years. It'll be a 3rd year coming up. As you know, there's different types of reviews, different types of compilations, different types of audits. So according to the best practices for the Community Association Institute, it is to come in to see that the board is following the procedures that were given to them when they took office. In other words, if the board was required to have 2 signatures, the auditor comes in and says, okay, they're doing that. In terms of a financial audit, the CPA went through all of the records when she filed the tax returns. She did a backup. But anybody is welcome at any time, within reason, to come, and I'd be glad to show them every receipt we've got.
I think maybe like that additional support on the website that the statements were posted would make people feel more comfortable. All we see is just the paper.
That's fine. We'll see what the majority has to say.
Well, so there is a process in place. We did get a request that was forwarded over to the board about the bank statements, but we haven't responded yet, but the request is ill-formed. It's not correct. In the governing documents, it specifies and outlines the process for requesting to review records. I did it in the past, and that's how I was able to spot some improprieties, right? Questionable behavior. We are not hiding anything from anybody. You submit a request, we're going to schedule time for you to come up here and take a look at those. Now, we're also working on a process where we can protect those documents and they're not forwarded around or sent outside the community like we've seen in the past. So we're not, and that's a great question, by the way, right? Karen is very diligent. She wants to take her time, and she's like a bulldog. We can't make her do nothing that she don't want to do. She want to dot her I's, cross her T's. She do want to link up all the backups. The backups are linked up in QuickBooks, but she like paper, so she continue to keep those records. So I encourage you all to go out and look at, I think it's in the declaration. It specifies how you should do it. If you want to go higher for the state, the Georgia Nonprofit Code provides information on how to submit an open records request. These are your records. We got one more question?
One more question? Yes, sir, Mr. Greathouse. Last question.
Okay. Well, all right, so I really want to hear from all candidates, so hopefully this question, I'll be very brief because I know we're trying to vote and get out of here. I appreciate you all providing these financial records at this point. I would love for more clarity being given regarding the form that needs to be, what form a request needs to be in to get official response in a timely manner. But outside of that, since we doesn't sound like we're going to get audits until probably a couple years in terms of kind of what's 2014 state, can you tell us a little bit more about your financial controls around issues? Because as you stated, we had some issues in the past with abuse of a petty cash account. My understanding is we have a debit card out there right now, so I would like to understand what your financial controls are around ensuring that we don't have misuse of funds in that way.
Yeah. When most associations have 2 lines on the check for 2 people to sign, the bank could care less. They're not going to enforce whether 2 signatures are on a check or not. That's an internal control. So when the bank statement comes back, if somebody signed a check with just 1 signature, then that's the issue for the board to delve into. When you talk about what a person can do with a debit card, technically right now today, I could go up to BB&T and write myself a check for $50,000 and take it and go to the Bahamas. Eventually I'm going to get caught and go to jail, but nobody can oversee that. The same thing with the check card, except that every month when the bank statement comes in, I match the bank statement to the check card receipt. And the receipt on there says Christmas decorations, or it says whatever it's for, and I have the debit card receipt with the receipt for what it's for. So controlling the debit card is just like I said, you can't stop me from writing a check or having 2 signatures on it. That's just the way it is. But we have directors and officers liability insurance, so that if anything is found to be wrong or fiduciary duties were not carried out, then there's repercussions for that. And I don't see us putting off an audit for that long. I'm ready for the audit. I think what we have to decide on is what kind of audit we're going to get. We don't need a forensic audit, you know. and the expense that goes to. And then second of all, this is a very small community. We don't write that many checks. We don't pay that many bills. So the way that I have it organized in the books, a CPA could come in here and audit our records in 2 or 3 days and give a report. So I have a lady, I'm sorry?
Okay, can she finish?
Well, I have a lady, she did our tax returns for the last 2 years, and I'm getting a bid from her, and we have other people that are CPAs to come in. And I agree, I welcome that because I want y'all to know how good a job I've been doing.
All right, yes, ma'am. We're gonna take these last 2 questions and that's it. Oh,
Can we respond? Yes. Is it okay? I just want to make sure because we have questions. Is it okay to respond? I just want to make sure I give you the respect. In terms of how nonprofits and 501c3s function, I've never really I've never experienced debit cards. We have a corporate American Express that we use, and we have a CPA that comes in monthly. We have a CPA that comes in quarterly, and we're audited annually. And not only do I welcome that, I make that an actual requirement. So let me finish. In terms of standards and operating procedures, I mean, that information is open to any person that requests it. Any donor, if you make a $5 donation or you make a $10,000 donation, anyone can request that information. And like Correll said, we should probably do an open records request if we want to see that. But I don't actually wait for that to come. I offer that. I do that every month. And that's something that I feel like should be a requirement here for the people that pay $850, $750, $900, whatever you pay, that should be something that's freely given on a regular basis, even monthly. On a regular basis, that information should be provided for those folks that want to know that information. If you're willing to sign on to my MRO and see that information, it should be available. So in terms of requesting, we shouldn't have to wait for a request to come in for that information to be provided. And I feel like in terms of transparency, what people are asking for and the information that I've received on a regular basis is that we're not sure of what happens, and when things do happen, I don't have a say in that. I don't have a voice. So in terms of budgets, being involved in the budget process, just presenting a budget to the people that have paid dues, $235,000 is a decent amount of money to kind of manage to make sure that you're following processes and procedures. And we actually have those. And I reviewed the standards, the standard operating procedures. 90% of the information that's in that says Regency Oaks on it is not followed. I'm very clear, it's not followed. What's presented in there's a Budget and Finance Committee that this information should be presented to, and they should be reviewing that on a regular basis. We don't have a Budget and Finance Committee. So at the end of the day, I think that folks would feel a little bit more comfortable if they knew that someone outside of the board and the folks that are actually creating the expenses, it's someone's monitoring them. And that's something that I feel like should be given.
All right, everybody. We do provide policy governing processes that run the operation of the association. Karen has spoke to the fact that we do have a number of vendors who do not take checks. So we had to satisfy that. We have volunteers who, when they go out and spend their money, they want their money back. So the process took 2 weeks, sometime even longer, to refund any money to the volunteers. So it really put a hold on a lot of things that we were trying to get done. Now, we've already spoken to the fact that we have interviewed a number of CPAs. It was about 6 of them at the end of last year for working with the treasurer so that as the monies come in, because they come in automatically, right? Because we pull from the bank, we pull from PayPal, anywhere where people are making their payments, and it goes into QuickBooks unless, which is a very small percentage of the people, bring in a check. At the end of that quarter, the idea is to have a CPA go in and do what we call tracking, right? To take a look at those transactions. People are talking about let's get an audit every month. That costs. No, that's not. Wait, hold on, let me finish. I didn't interrupt anybody. I just want to get my piece out. Just let me get mine out. Thank you. So we have people talking about paying an auditor on a monthly basis. that costs, right? So depending on what type of auditor, or audit, I'm sorry, if we do a review, that's a lot less expensive than if we have someone who will track down the actual transactions. So one thing that we do, you all have the budget. The community can vote to have an audit. We go out and we'll get a quote. So if you say forensic audit, we go get the quote, and it comes back $20,000, $30,000. That cost has to be split amongst all of the members. So while we now looking to do audits, we had a number of other areas. We had to put some focus in to get some things done to make sure that we got back up to speed. We were in a dire need of taking care of our physical amenities, taking care of the property value. We were just trying to get those things up. Folks, we're going to have a CPA start generating the financial statements. They will track down these transactions on a per transaction basis. So I won't take up too much time, but that's the thought. Okay.
All right, thanks. So, I mean, all I'm asking for as a homeowner here and as a dues-paying homeowner is getting quarterly financial statements. Is that asking too much?
We're now going to implement that. We started that, and it's got stopped because people didn't want it. So we were doing quarterly statements in 2015. Yes. Yes, we did. Okay. So you all were not coming to the meetings at that particular
Okay, which meeting?
In 2015.
A board meeting or a community meeting?
During a meeting. We didn't do it.
I'm asking for clarification.
We mailed them out.
Wait. A question was asked of the candidates. You need to answer that question and not ask him any questions. If you want to give your answer to the question, give your answer to the question, but we're going to keep this moving.
We did. Quarterly statements. 2015.
Was that a quarterly community meeting?
All right, so we're going to, at this point, we're going to proceed with the election. If you have your ballot, you have a question, then come on, let's get your question.
This is the last question.
Well, I have a question and also a concern that I have as listening to all of these. Okay, Velma Clay Brooks. In the past, John Whelan did not provide detailed budget information in his quarterly budgets that he provided. And also, at least not in detail that I see here that was provided today. Now, they did provide quarterly or at least different meetings in the comments that we got. My question is for the different people that are running here today. My concern is how are you, or what are you going to be providing to us, and how are you going to be providing the detailed information that has been provided in detailed that we have here today, and how are you going to incorporate even more with audits or whatever that you are saying that you will be providing? How are you going to do this for this community if there are concerns?
We didn't take over until June of 2014. So June of 2014, the first set of records were produced by NMA. We got those. Well, we've got closets full of NMA records from 2002. We took over the last half of 2014. The 2015, I did quarterly statements. They're on Regency Oaks next door, and an annual statement. In 2016, the last meeting that we had, and I prepared all these, I picked them all up off the table. So nobody seemed interested in, I didn't want them floating around with our financial information. So, that's not true. Okay, okay.
Stop. All right. No, just finish up.
Okay, well, let me just say this here. I've been here 12 years, and you said you've been here 2 years. Were you here in 2014? Okay, so when we took over in 2014 from John Whelan.
Speak up.
Okay, when we took over from John Whelan in 2014, They handed us a check for $42,000 and said, "Have a nice day. Here's a record of all the homeowners and what they owe, and we'll see you later." That was it. We did get their paper records with the little bit of backup that they sent, and as I audited that myself, they paid bills that didn't even exist out here. NMA is out of business and doesn't care about us anymore, so there's nothing we could do about that. Like I said, in 2015, I do monthly reports, and I have the quarterly reports. So I don't understand if you were, what did? They can't hear you when you look at it. Okay. Well, I'm not sure when you came in 2015 or. Okay. So I don't know how many meetings you came to or whatever, but the information is there.
Answer the question.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. End of conversation.
No, I'm
The records are available. Anybody that wants to see them.
So I just want to make sure I'm recapping the question correctly. You're saying that what are we going to provide that's different from what's there? And more? Oh, okay, so on a regular basis, when you close out the month, that information should be available. So we'll do monthly, quarterly, annually, without anyone asking. And anyone that has a request for detailed supporting documentation, and the difference between the reports and the budget that's provided now is there's not a lot of detail. I provide detailed financials. So you can see who the vendors are, how much we paid the vendors, when we paid them, for what reason we paid them. So
in the hole. We are not in the hole now. That's my.
I completely understand that, but this budget actually projects us to be in the hole. So if you look at the bottom line, it actually is a negative $6,000. So budgets are supposed to either zero themselves out or have some type of profit. So at the end of the day, when I read this budget, I'm a little concerned that we're projecting us to be in the negative. Also, this year, we're in a $42,000 negative. Yes, we have money in reserve to pay for that According to the reports that I saw, I know how to read a P&L. I know how to read a P&L. And according to the P&L that I looked at, it said the net income is negative $42,000. So at the end of the day, I get that. I get what you're saying. But if someone's looking at it, there's a concern that says that. So if there's a different report that needs to present a different position, then I need to see that. All I'm saying is that from my perspective, in terms of what I present on a regular basis to a board, to the president, to anyone that will ask, it's information that presents a true financial position and detailed information and supporting documentation. So if you're concerned about what we look like and if we're in the hole, I've never in the history of my career presented financials where we're in a hole, so I would never present that. If we're going in that direction, then I'll make sure we redirect ourselves to ensure that we're not in that position. So I've been doing this for over 20 years. There's no way that I'll not know how to do it, and I do it on a regular basis. Now I answer to somebody much larger than the homeowners. I answer to the government. So I have requirements that I have to fulfill that I'm no stranger to. So audits, I welcome them.
Well, I want to give a reality check, folks. When I manage a business, me and my wife, and I advertise that I have a background in business, improving processes, and then I got involved in the HOA. It is a total different beast. Now, Karen explained that $42,000 to represent what we invested in capital contribution. So she did explain that away. Now, from a budget perspective, also a budget is a living document, subject to change as often as we need to make those changes. What we were doing was just trying to make sure we provide a reality check. I am not discounting anyone's experience. I know from my experience managing an HOA, because the dues is typically not dependable, right? Right now we're in the 90s, right? 90% collection rate. Next year, who knows what may happen to make those type of changes. So we make these type of adjustments on an ongoing basis because we moved our financial system online. We're not dependent on a management company to send reports. Look, when I moved out here 6 years ago, we got our financial statements by paper alone at the meeting. The only people that got monthly reports were the advisory committee. They only started sharing once I started asking as a part of an open records request. And then there was a bulk upload of that actual information. Look, we have a vested interest in the success of the community. Why? We are homeowners first. My wife's comfort, my kids' comfort are very important to me. We've heard a request for more immediate audits. We're going to comply, but it depends on costs. So to sit up and promise monthly, quarterly, and annual reports without even evaluating what that cost will be, in my opinion, is irresponsible. I want to go out and get you some quotes. You know, we're speaking about a quarterly CPA review of the documents. That's based on the quotes that we have received. So anybody that knows me, I'm going to dig into the weeds and get into the business. Correll, why are you not using a management company? Because they indemnified. That's why the contract is bad. So you got to look at the contract. That's why we're taking our time with the CPA contracts. We want to make sure the contract language is favorable to you all. Okay? I think Natalie may want to speak.
All right, this is going to be a vote.
I'm sorry I contributed to it.
So I, as a resident, I do have a question. I hope that's okay. So when I spoke to the young lady back there who's going to be tallying the ballots, I asked her the electronic ballots that were submitted. I said, did you send that email out asking for the electronic ballots? And she said, no, I didn't send that out. So my question is, how are the electronic ballots, I mean, one, are they secret ballots? And who are those going to? And who's tallying those? Because she basically said she wasn't.
As a secretary of the corporation, I received those ballots via email, and they are printed out. People are allowed to sign them online.
So you are the one, you're counting them?
And to date them. No, I'm going to be a part of the counting process, yes ma'am. But right now, the management company is receiving, they gave out the ballots and the proxies here today, and they are
I'm referring to the electronic ballots. So I didn't ask you the question. So I wouldn't know, let me finish, Correll. So my question is, the electronic ballot, put yourself in any candidate, any of you guys are running. If the ballots were coming back, wouldn't you want to know who they were coming back to and who's counting them? Is that?
Any company, the secretary of the corporation receives those documents in elections. That happens in any company.
So
the secretary or his designee.
So what I'm saying is, as a candidate, I think that I should have known proactively, if we have a third party who is supposed to govern over this election, then to me they should be governing over the electronic process as well. It shouldn't go to a board member who is supporting, of course, the incumbents. And I'm just saying, if you guys were running yourselves, would you want that for yourselves? That you don't know how the ballots, so we have no idea how many electronic ballots will come in. We won't see them. And so I just wanted to put that out to everyone. The ballots in the room, they're going to this young lady, absolutely. I asked her, was she collecting the electronic ballots? Not at all. So why is one part of the election being handled by a third party, but then the other part of the election is being handled by Marvin? That's my statement.
Thank you. No. Okay. All right, so thank you. At this time, we're going to ask everyone to turn their ballots in the back. If you have your ballot, please turn it in, and we will proceed with the tallying of the votes. Thank you so much for coming out. The way the vote counted, the management company did 2 counts in the kitchen, and then Justin and I each did our 2 counts, and all of our numbers matched with their numbers. So our 2 board members for this year will be Karen Blackman and Correll Driscoll. We thank you all for coming out. We ask that you continue to participate in your community, and we hope that if you have questions, comments, or concerns, that you will submit them to the help desk so that we can receive them and work with you to try to get them addressed. Thank you.